Welcome to this webinar on how to improve candidate Net Promoter Score with candidate feedback. The last people are still joining, so let's give them a time to get comfortable, and let's make it hopefully a very informative session. But since there are many great talent acquisition people in the call, maybe we can also make it a little bit of a networking event. So I'm happy to already share my LinkedIn in the chat. Feel free to connect and also drop your LinkedIn. Hello from Boston. Nice. Hi, George. Yes, that's great to see. Okay, I think we're ready to get started. So first of all, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Lars van Wieren. I'm the founder of Start. I founded the company 10 years ago when working at Google. Because there, once a year, we did a very long and boring customer satisfaction survey. Our clients really hated it. It took them 30 minutes, and we did absolutely nothing with the results. So for me, that was the moment to start, and also to focus on the respondent and make it far more personal, short and sweet, and also with the right follow-up mechanisms to give feedback. So that was first in the customer satisfaction space. And then I started to make quite some first-time founder mistakes, as they like to call it, because from customer satisfaction, we went into employee satisfaction, customer support, candidate feedback. You have a problem with feedback, better call Start, and they will fix it for you. So we were a jack of all trades and a master of none. So 5 years ago, we decided to do one thing very well, and we fully focused on measuring and optimizing the candidate experience. So that's what Start is all about, and so it's a candidate experience analytics platform. And we were doing this, and there was also a company in Copenhagen doing the exact same thing, a Talent Hub, and we were constantly fighting each other. So instead of fighting each other, we decided to join forces. So since last year, we merged with Talent Hub. So we're now a combined entity. And that's also because we have bigger plans. So we are about to launch something called our hiring experience platform next quarter. So watch this space if you're interested on how we want to take candidate experience to the next level. Yeah, we help companies become candidate-centric, and we work for many great brands. And how we approach it or how we see it, we work for the Fortune 500 companies. So the really big corporations like Volvo, like InBev, like Diageo. And we work for the Future 500. So smaller companies than the ones mentioned, but companies with global ambitions. And all of them know that if you want to be successful and if you want to become a real big company, you need A players. So you need the top talent to be successful. And you can only land the top talent if your whole recruitment process is top-notch. Because top talent are allergic to inefficient candidate processes. They are allergic to long waiting times or getting asked the exact same questions in all the interviews. So that's what we see as a commonality amongst our clients. They have big ambitions to hire the best people. So the agenda for today. So first of all, I think it's important that we all get a good understanding of the cNPS, so the candidate Net Promoter Score, and also how it's calculated. Secondly, we want to look at the implications and consequences of a good or bad cNPS. It's important how to measure a cNPS with feedback, and we're putting it all into practice by also going into the platform to also get an understanding, okay, now internally people are convinced that we should measure it, but how can we put this into practice? Feel free to ask questions also in the chat, and at the end there will also be time for Q&A. Yeah, understanding candidate Net Promoter Score. So what you see here is the question we ask all candidates. So based on your application experience, how likely are you to recommend applying to company name to others? And as you see, the scale is from 0 to 10. And how it's calculated, that's where it becomes interesting, because the 0 to 6, we call them detractors. So people that had a bad experience, and they are obviously super important because most likely they will talk to others about the bad experience they've had. And the same goes with promoters, so your 9 and 10s. They had a great experience and they will also talk to others about it. And the 7 and 8s, they are called passives. And for me personally, when I went to school, 7 or 8, that for me, that was like top notch already. And then I was like, okay, I've done my best and I've also some time for other things. But when it comes to candidate experience, yeah, they don't really count because they will never talk about the experience they've had. So we take them out of the equation. So if you want to calculate the net promoter score, in this case, you look at the percentage promoters and you look at the percentage detractors. So for instance, if 50% of your candidates are promoters and 20% are detractors, you have a cNPS of plus 30. And that's good to keep in mind when we also show some examples. So as you will understand, it's either minus 100, so that's only having detractors, up until plus 100 if you only have passives. And you can already imagine that there will be big differences between hired candidates and rejected candidates, but we will get to that later. First, I would like to share 2 real-life examples of start clients based on their candidate net promoter score. So first of all, Twilio, a big tech company from San Francisco. Last year, I shared the stage with Matt Connett, their VP of Talent Acquisition during Greenhouse Open in New York. And he said about Start is the place where opinions become data. And he had this great example because at Twilio, they are hiring many engineers. And there was always the feeling like first we need them to talk to a recruiter and then they can do a HackerRank test. So HackerRank is an assessment for developers. And then someone said, well, I think that most developers rather take the HackerRank assessment first before talking to a recruiter. And there was like this debate that people were saying, no, but people want to talk to people and we need to do that first interview, a real life interview. And it was costing them a lot of time and therefore a lot of money. And that was the moment Matt said, okay, let's do an AP test. So half of the developers, we will only ask for a HackerRank test. And the other half, we will first do a recruiter call and then a HackerRank test. And then eventually it turned out that the developers who only did the HackerRank test were 13% more positive about their experience than the others. So for them, it was a great way to actually optimize the process, to have better candidate experience and save a lot of money at the same time. Second example is Vodafone. So when Vodafone became a client, their candidate experience was not great. And already within 3.5 months' time, we helped them to improve their NPS on various touch points. So for instance, if you look at the rejected after interview, that was around plus 10 and it went up to plus 35. So that's obviously already great. But how did they save the $142,000? So what they've done is they looked into also into their database, because what they saw is because of bad candidate experience, quite some candidates were actually canceling their subscription. And so they checked that before they started measuring and 3.5 months later, and it actually saved them 142,000 in lost revenue. So that's also, if you want to convince others that it's important to measure candidate experience, yeah, often it helps to talk about the bottom line. How to measure cNPS with feedback? Well, it's super important to define the candidate journey. Every company has a different candidate journey, and it's important to map out the various stages, and maybe even more important to make sure that you integrate everything and automate it. We've seen quite some examples of companies that decided to measure the candidate experience, and they did it in a manual way. First of all, it was costing them a lot of time to actually send out the surveys. So all the time spent there was time that wasn't available to analyze the result. Secondly, they saw quite some cherry picking. So what happened is that recruiters were saying, okay, yeah, let's send this out for feedback, but let's exclude these candidates because, yeah, they're quite upset with us, so better not ask them for feedback. So you can't really trust the results. And thirdly, because sometimes they forgot to send it out or they only did it once a month, it was sometimes a month later, so a month after the application closed. And then people don't have a good idea any longer about how the candidate experience was. So define the candidate journey and integrate and automate the whole process. Next to that, create surveys to match each stage. So if you use one generic survey, you will also get generic insights. For instance, if you reject someone after their resume or after one phone screen, it's very different than when they had like 5 on-site interviews and an assessment. So various stages means various surveys. And also you can envision that you should ask different questions, for instance, to salespeople than to developers. Yes, so enough with the slides. I don't want to do that by PowerPoint. So let's dive into the platform to also see how can you measure in a great way and what kind of results can you expect. Let me share my screen. Yes. So we've done a lot of testing also when it comes to the invitation. And what we've noticed is when you make it very personal, so also if it's someone they recognize from the process, but also if they recognize certain stuff applicable to them. And most importantly, if you ask the first question already in the email, it will really boost the response rate. So on average, we see 30% response rate. And as you can imagine, and normally it would say, click here to start the survey. And then people start to think, do I really want to take this survey? How long is it? So in this case, they can actually already think about the process and you get them already in the state where they are answering questions. So in this case, I got rejected, but still I thought it was a good process. So I click a 9. And that will open up the survey. So in this case, it's Coca-Cola. We can do everything on brand, and the 9 is already pre-filled. So it's already easy to continue with the survey. Once again, we believe it should be short and sweet, not too many open-ended questions. So candidates seem to like this way of giving feedback. Was the reason made clear? Yes. Could have done better. Nothing. Okay, when I click submit survey, we look at the sentiment of the survey. So in this case, I had a great experience. So what we will do is, we can show a different thank you page. And in this case, we can also ask them to write a review on Glassdoor. So it can also help to boost your online presence. The other way around, if I've had a terrible experience and I'm super upset with the company, we show a different thank you page saying, we're sorry, we didn't do great. And at the same moment, we can send a firefight email to the right recruiter or the hiring manager to say, this candidate had a terrible experience. This is the reason you might want to follow up on it. And still, these people will go on Glassdoor, or you can invite them to go on Glassdoor. But it's important to first also reflect on their bad experience and come to a solution, or at least have a proper conversation, what you can learn from it. So that's how we look at the survey, how to approach it. So it's super easy for the candidate to give feedback, and it can really help with your online presence. Going into the platform. So what you see here is the backend of Start. In this case, the admin dashboard. And that's important to mention, is that we can really mimic your organizational structure. Because we also believe that candidate experience is important, but you don't want everyone to see all the results. For instance, it's great that when I'm a recruiter, I log into the system, I can see my own scores, so how I'm doing in terms of candidate experience, and I can also see how I'm doing compared to my peers, but that I can't sneak on other colleagues. So, and this is something that we can define, like, okay, when someone has this role, this is the view they should see. So let me, in this case, go through the admin dashboard. So what you see here is filters, and that's important because when things are integrated, this is information we can fetch from your ATS. And then, for instance, we can look at the rejection reason, did not show up to the interview, and we can filter the results on that specific topic. So here you will see your overall Net Promoter Score, but it becomes more interesting when you look at the various stages. We define 3 important stages. Your hired candidates, well, they most likely will be very cheerful because they just got a new job. Your rejected candidates, but also your withdrawn candidates. There's a lot of information in the people that you would love to hire, but that withdrew from the process. Let's go to the department performance. This is, for instance, as a TA leader, it will be great for you to actually see, okay, which departments are doing great, which departments are lagging. And what we've seen working is not to go to the departments that are lagging and give them a hard time, but actually praise the departments that are doing great, also give them a stage, and also share with the company what's their secret sauce to great candidate experience. You can always, for instance, IT, you can always deep dive. So in this case, it's the whole IT department. I can see how they're doing compared to other departments. And since not everyone wants to log into to dashboards all the time, it's also possible to schedule a report. For instance, to your C-level, that before their monthly meeting, they will get a snapshot. This is what's cooking within candidate experience. Recruiter performance. This is a great view for a team lead to see exactly how are all my different recruiters doing. And also, for instance, for every element, who's my top one, who's my bottom one. And with everything you see here, you can always deep dive and get a better understanding, the reasoning behind it. So these are still quite static dashboards. I would say my favorite view, and let's go to a survey dashboard. So rejection after interview, the matrix view. Because the matrix view will show you instantly for every recruiter, for every department, for every role, what you should do differently tomorrow to improve candidate experience. So in this case, the preparation of interview, as you can see, it's way below average. So the satisfaction is a 6.4, where the average satisfaction is 7.3. And it's highly correlated to the Net Promoter Score. And what this means is that we look in every individual feedback form. And then, for instance, someone will say, well, the preparation of the interview was terrible, but I would recommend this process to all my friends. Then we know, okay, we should have done better when it comes to the preparation of interview, but still, you're a big advocate for our recruitment process. So we give it like a lower priority. And this is really your shopping list, what to change first to improve candidate experience. And since we also know that you can't change everything at once, we always invite our clients to focus on the top 3 elements. And what you will see is the next quarter, there will be different topics to improve, but in general, your candidate experience will grow. go back to the admin dashboard. Yeah, one thing I would like to show, which is new, is the comment analysis. Because what we see, especially when you have a large organization, you will get a lot of comments, and analyzing every single comment will be hard. So we believe it's better to actually look at the sentiment, and then also, for instance, the feedback part that you see. Okay, I would like to deep dive on what people are saying about the feedback we're providing. And here you can see, for instance, yeah, weird phone call, no explanation. So it will be easier to understand, okay, what's behind this this low score. Benchmarks, yeah, this is the most important reason why many companies decide to use a real solution to measure candidate experience and not work with a Google form or any other survey tool. Because sure, you can still use a survey tool to get feedback from candidates, but it will be super hard to understand if you are actually on the right path. Because when it comes to rejected candidates, often you will see a negative NPS. And if you go to the leaders of the company and you show a negative number, they will most likely say that you should improve, and how can it be negative? And therefore, for instance, rejected after interview, what you see here, looking at all our data, that the bottom 25% of our clients sometimes even have an NPS of minus 76. So here you can see exactly like, hey, we're not doing bad. We can still improve, but the minus doesn't mean that we're in a bad place. You can always filter this on industry, company size, location. And we just launched our benchmark report. I believe the team will also share it in the chat. Okay, so that's the demo. So we're going back to the slides, I think. So to wrap it all up, and also to do a little Q&A if there are questions. Yes, so beyond candidate experience. So this the focus of this webinar has been around candidate experience. But to have a successful recruitment process, it's not only candidates. For instance, hiring manager satisfaction. So that's where we ask the hiring manager feedback on the collaboration with the recruitment team, but also the recruitment team on the collaboration with the hiring managers. So we believe you need this total view of your recruitment performance to actually improve also the candidate experience. Quality of hire, that's something we've recently launched, and that's already beyond the candidate experience. But after 6 months, when the honeymoon phase is over, we ask the manager, is this still your dream candidate? And we ask the candidate, is this still your dream job? And we can plot all the scores to also see if in certain departments there are too many mismatches. And we had an example from a company from New York recently, and in their product team, there were so many mismatches that obviously they brought in HR also to see what they could still fix, but they already opened some additional roles because they could already expect a higher first-year attrition compared to other departments. So start is where opinions become data, and also to make sure that we can prevent like that you will be understaffed in certain areas. And the last part, internal mobility. So obviously you will also have many internal candidates, and a bad candidate experience is obviously bad, but a bad internal mobility experience is even worse, because these are people that are already part of your organization, and it will highly impact their employee satisfaction as well. And they will talk to other colleagues, and they might become toxic because they had such a bad experience. So we believe that's also super important to measure it and to monitor it. Yes. So a quick recap. So identify the key stages to map candidate surveys, create surveys to map each stage, integrate, automate, and obviously analyze the data and benchmark to your peers. Super important, the industry benchmark, because you're either below the benchmark, then you need to do everything to make sure that you will at least get on par with the benchmark, or you're above the benchmark. And that's also something you can voice in your employer branding, or something you can say to the C-level, like, hey, we're in a pretty good place. So benchmarking is key for everything. That's it. Well, we still have 5 minutes, so I welcome any questions in the chat. George, sounds great, but we're still a bit short on budget. How do you suggest we start building a business case? Yes, that's that's something we hear quite often, especially during these trying times. I've shared the example of Vodafone. So if your candidate is your client, there's even a calculator on our website where you can really calculate what a bad candidate experience will cost you. But obviously, it will it will streamline your recruitment process. So what we've seen is that you can do more with less. So even with fewer recruiters, it's possible to manage the whole recruitment process. We've seen shorter time to hire. So on many aspects, we can improve the main metrics of your recruitment process. But it differs per company. So George, feel free to reach out after this webinar, and we can do a proper calculation. Megan, how does the internal mobility survey differ from the external survey? It's a great question. Not that much. It's more the mapping is a bit more complex, also with your ATS. So once again, it might sound interesting sometimes to do this manually or do it yourself, but the opportunity costs of actually sending it out are often higher. So the survey itself, it has a couple of different questions, also more related to the employee engagement part I mentioned. We have recently started with cNPS, got the inputs for 6 months now. Now we are looking for industry benchmark to know how we are performing in the industry. I think the benchmark report is already shared, but also feel free to reach out if you are in a certain industry and you would like us to make an analysis. So happy to do that. Any other questions? I think that's about it for now. Well, I'm super happy that we are on time. I also get a thumbs up from Maggie, who arranged everything. Thank you, Maggie. So yes, that's about it. Big love to the marketing team also for doing this. Once again, I've shared my LinkedIn in the chat. Feel free to connect. And if you have any additional or in-depth questions, just let me know. Thank you so much.